Welcome to Work the Left Side. I'm hyped to announce tonight's guest. It is the founding member of Hellbound, Mr. Alton Thorne. How are we doing, dude? You good?
Good. Really happy to be on the show, mate. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
5x5, buddy. I'm good. As I kind of nicked this off Mr. Nixon, but too blessed to be stressed is my new favorite saying. So I've stole that from Lou because I think it's awesome. So yeah, I'm too blessed to be stressed. So obviously, you say it's my job to say thank you for coming on and talking to me because you're taking time out. I mean, obviously, as soon as I found out you was a Nottingham boy, I was like, right, here we go.
Exactly. Exactly.
Got to get you on. Got to represent. Let's stick together. I'll try not to talk about Goose Fair or anything too much. We'll stick to the wrestling. But
hey, there's stuff we can say about Goose Fair. My dad used to box on Goose Fair.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Back in the 80s, there was a little the 70s and 80s that used to have like a boxing ring in the middle of the Goose Fair, and what would happen is they would get a couple of professional boxers in to do shifts about half an hour each and invite people into the ring and try and fight them. And my dad would get like a couple of £100 for like 4 or 5 fights and come home. So so we're like proper Nottingham, like our whole roots are in Nottingham.
That's awesome because often I hear stories like that. You'd hear again. I'm a massive mark for like William Regal and stuff. And I remember hearing stories about him back in the day. Like Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where they kind of did the same sort of thing there. But like the wrestling and stuff, and people to step up, try and get in, beat the person. I never saw it because just before my time, but I had heard stories. Like the boxing at Goose Fair and stuff. So that's awesome.
I never saw it, but I remember seeing Dad come home and he would be cut up and stuff. Because he did that like later into his career. I mean, with boxing, it's a relatively short career, right? You have a good run, and then you kind of similar to football ages, right? Like about 37, like you've had your best years. So and the problem for him was that because he'd put all of his time and effort and dedication into boxing, that he never like had a get out plan. So like he'd end up doing boxing here, there, and everywhere, and he kind of really like he was part of that kind of almost carny culture that is like also like a very professional wrestling thing as well, like you say.
Dude, that's crazy. So I mean, obviously, I'll kind of let's talk like you said that the carny culture it's as old as times. It's it's so associated with wrestling kind of thing. It's still deemed. I don't know whether it's said in like a bad way or if it's meant as an insult back in the day. But when people talk about Carnet and stuff, they call him like a carny and things like that. So, but yeah, it's the same kind of mindset. So you're traveling from town to town, putting on shows. Yeah. So. Well, you said you get into wrestling then. I'm curious. Sorry, we'll get back to other stuff. But so obviously you're talking to your dad. Did you talk to your dad about getting into wrestling? Obviously with the boxing background, was he all for it? Did he kind of have an opinion on it?
Yeah, he was never a massive fan of professional wrestling himself because he did so many martial arts and things, and he always said that like he could see that you wouldn't be able to use some of the techniques in a real fight, and that kind of stuff would put him off. Which I could understand when you've dedicated like your entire life to like multiple martial arts, being a professional boxer. I get it. So he wasn't into professional wrestling, but he's always been really supportive of me. So I think how he kind of sees it is I'm doing almost an equivalence of what he was doing. He was a pretty good professional boxer who was well known on the UK circuit, who had fights with decent talent, and I think he kind of sees me reflected in that a little bit, and I think he's definitely proud of it, even if he's not a massive mark like I am.
Dude, that's awesome. Like I say, you don't have to be a fan of it to appreciate the hard work that goes into it, kind of thing. Which sure. He'll pick up on that. The amount of training you do, the bumps and things like that. It's like like you said, you're looking at it through legitimate fighter's eyes, not to sort of besmirch or anything like that, but you're looking at like a legitimate fighter looking at sports entertainment, we'll use the terminology kind of thing, and you can kind of see why they step back, but that doesn't take away, like say, the effort and the bump and the injuries and just the knocks and bruises you guys get. then yeah, I think I can imagine being very proud of that.
Yeah, and it's dedication and time away from your family, and a lot of sacrifice, and knowing that you're going to be in pain. I mean, especially with some of the stuff I do these days, there's always going to be a bit of a burden. So it's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of effort, especially when because of the nature of British wrestling. If you don't have a contract in wrestling, then usually you'll either need a part-time job or to be selling merch like the clappers, So I've got to find a way to make basically two careers work at the same time, So there isn't always that time to be, my time is very, very cut up by bookings and stuff. So it takes a toll, and my dad recognizes that toll because it's the same thing that he did to become a professional athlete. But it did pay off. He's got a decent record. He brought money in while he was doing it, and he was able to feed his family. And for me, I'm getting to live the dream every weekend, So
Dude, that's it, right? That's just that book kind of, I don't think the word bookmarks or bookshelves the conversation perfectly. Like you said, that just sums it up, and that is perfect. So we talked about then, obviously, you getting into wrestling. We talked about it, before I hit record. You've basically, this is like your 10th anniversary. You've been around for like 10 years.
Yeah.
You've been with House of Pain from day one. What made you, take them steps? What made you think, right, I want to be a wrestler?
Somebody informed me that there was a school in Nottingham, literally minutes away from where I was standing, and I don't think it had ever crossed my mind that I could even be a wrestler. I think for a lot of people in England, it didn't. It seemed like a big American thing, right? Because we came after the world of sport rush, so it wasn't like it was an active career in this country. There were a few people doing it. So I'd never really considered, I can go off and be a wrestler. But the second somebody had said, there's a school literally right there, did you know about it? It was like, right, well, that's it then. I've got to go. Because if I don't try it, I'll never know. And I could be the next Mick Foley. So that was my thinking. It's like, got to go do it and see.
Dude, that's it. And I love that thought as well. The Mick Foley being like, the bar kind of thing. It's like, right, we'll go and do this. I'm off going to be the next Mick Foley kind of thing. So,
yeah.
And obviously, I've spoken to numerous people, from House of Pain. Obviously, I've spoken to Joey, part of Hellbound, and everybody's bigged up, House of Pain so much. It's just an amazing facility. Over the years, Styx has built it up to make it look like something you see at the performance center kind of thing.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I always quote JR. I heard him on, I think it was one of his old podcasts, saying somebody had asked him a question about which schools you should pick. And he said, you can always tell the caliber of the school by the people who have come out of it, what they've done, where they've been since that point. Now, you look at House of Pain, immediately, I think Joseph Connors in WWE, Gabe Kidd in New Japan, Kanji all over the country, ZZ all over the country. The list goes on, So I think you can tell that there is a little hotbed of indie wrestling in Nottingham that's making moves, There's people wrestle all over the country, in other countries and across the waters that have come out of House of Pain. So I'll always big up the school and always big up Styx, who I think is one of the most underrated big men in the history of British wrestling, in my opinion.
Nothing but love for Styx. Spoke to him many moons ago. I can't remember exactly what episode it was, but we've talked. And yeah, like I said, dude, is for me, when I was first started getting into British wrestling, I used to go to Southside all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Dude. And I remember seeing Styx coming out, with the chains. And like I said, at that time, there wasn't many big, just hench British wrestlers. It was all kind of like, your Kirby's, Joey Hayes, Chris Travis's, not, good guys, good physiques, but not, freaking bodybuilder looking guys, Styx stood out for me. Styx was like, oh, that dude's huge.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like he's got an incredible metabolism, and it doesn't like he's worked forever on that body, so it's just like made of granite at this point, essentially. Like, I think he's in the best shape he's ever been in, and he's just retired, you know. So it goes to show, and he put the hard graft in. He's wrestled some of the absolute best that have ever that have ever laced him up. We mentioned Mick Foley. He's wrestled him. He's wrestled Kevin Owens, who's just done a WrestleMania main event with Stone Cold a couple of years ago. Six wrestled him a couple of times. They had great matches at Southside, you know. So, you know, again, you can tell the caliber, and look at the people that big him up on. Like Ivy's constantly saying that Styx massively helps her keep, and Ivy's like, as far as like heel wrestlers go in this country, she's like top level in my opinion. So yeah, like big up Styx, big up House of Pain. If anybody wants to go train there, they should check it out. It's, you know, like you said, it's a fantastic facility.
Have you when I was talking to Joey, he was on about the Styx hug. He kind of compared it to the poor Hollywood handshake. You know, like if you get a hug off Styx, mate, that's it. You know, that's your year made. You know, and it doesn't count if you have it at the Christmas party. You've got to do it after like a show or something, because apparently it gets very huggy at Christmas time. Yeah,
with me, it's always been he looks at you as if to say, that's what I wanted, and then he does the hand slap and the pull into the shoulder. Now, so that's like the manly version of the Styx hug. That's what he reserves for the big beefy blokes, you know?
Yeah, poor Joey just gets like, if you did that to Joey, Joey's shoulders.
Tap on the head.
Go on. But yeah, obviously, you know, again, talking about Joey, like when I mentioned Southside to him, mate, his eyes lit up kind of thing. And obviously, like I said, you went to Southside, you know, I was devastated when they, you know, kind of closed the doors. But if anybody's listening, anybody's looking to invest, you know, or bring a promotion back, I think everybody in Nottingham or around Nottingham would be, you know, I'm so thankful if anybody could bring Southside back. That would be amazing.
Agreed. I think there are companies now that are like running at that kind of standard. I think, I know that you're a big fan of True Grit. I think that when I see their shows, that kind of reminds me of that standard at Southside Rack when I used to go watch them. North, absolutely killing it. But it would be nice to have a Southside or an equivalent back right in the centre of the East Midlands. And that's just because I'm lazy and I'd rather not travel, I think.
Well, that's it. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking more for you. And it's only an hour down the motorway from me, so that's fine. But obviously, like you say, you know, we we sponsor True Grit. I'll always hype up True Grit. You mentioned Ivy. Obviously, Ivy did a banging job being women's champ there. Brady Phillips is now the men's champ. Obviously, another House of Pain graduate, we'll say.
Oh, and Harley announced today that she's in the True Grit Rumble for the show that's coming up. So, for the Pride show. So awesome. Somebody representing Hellbound will be in that Rumble. So keep your eyes out for Harley because she's absolutely killing it at the moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, you know, somebody else I'd love to speak to at some point down the line, because I spoke to Alfie a few weeks ago, and obviously those two, you know, got that rivalry going on, kind of thing. You know, it's kind of like the
years at this point.
That's it exactly. But Alfie was shouting her up, sort of saying, you know, she brings out the best in her. She looks forward to the matches, kind of thing. You know, steel sharpens steel. You know, I say it all the time, but it's that kind of a thing. So, but you, as we were sort of saying, we talked about it previously as well, kind of thing. You know, pre-global bastard COVID, whatever you want to call it. Everything was ticking over nicely. It was building up. And then, you know, obviously we lost wrestling for a year and a bit. And then it came back. And dude, you've been snowballing since. You know, I'm looking, you know, like I say, looking on Cage Match. And it's just like, you know, so much information over the last 3 years or something.
Yeah. Well, for the first 6 years before COVID, like I was consistently wrestling, but it was always on like small at most medium-sized shows in the kind of Midlands area. I'd occasionally have a few here and there, like I wrestled in Morecambe a few times, which was great, you know. Some experiences here and there, but mostly it was like Stoke, Nottingham, Derby, Lincoln, all those kind of areas. So just kind of getting my reps in. And I think I was seen as a good hand, like a decent heel on those shows at the time. And I always thought if I could just get my foot in the door of like hardcore wrestling somewhere. But there wasn't really anywhere for that in the Midlands. You had Rise in Hull, but I didn't really know anybody from Rise. And in wrestling, it's often who you know. And TNT, like they ran a deathmatch tournament every so often, but they're not going to put me in a deathmatch tournament without any deathmatch experience because they don't want to put themselves in that position, right? And that's fully understandable. So I had nowhere to kind of get those chops. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, the only two companies that were running all the time, except for WWE, were two deathmatch companies in the US on a thing called IWTV, GCW and ICW No Holds Barred. And those two companies ran deathmatch shows throughout COVID. So when COVID was finished, there was suddenly this massive hunger in America and in the UK for more deathmatch because it's all people were able to watch during COVID. So people have got like kind of a bit of a taste for it, and that never really happened before. So then a couple of friends, somebody that I'd met through wrestling in the Midlands, Matt, who had worked for Rise a couple of times, said, "We're thinking of starting up a deathmatch company. Would you be interested in joining us?" And that was it. After that, it was just, you know, it has thankfully rolled from there. And that's what I thought would happen because I just thought I'd be good. Like if I could just get just get my way in there, I think people would see that I'm really good at it.
Yeah, and like you said, mate, perfect analogy is again, you know, the amount of people I speak to, it's networking, it's people you know, it's just that one person or that right moment of somebody just saying your name at the right time or at the right show, and somebody being like, yeah, right, come on, let's go. He's booked, and there you go, kind of thing. But obviously, I mean, this, you know, promotion, you know, obviously, I'm going to go out and say, like, you know, you've got Kumite, Bleeding Gums. You've been at TNT now, I've seen.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah.
And I've done a couple of Rise shows as well, which was kind of one of my big goals because Rise was really the only company flying the flag for a style of wrestling that I really love. For years and years, and they're kind of this little underground federation that nobody knew about, out of the way. They were running crazy deathmatch shows, and I thought that's where I'd really like to be. So I'm really happy that I've had the opportunity to kind of hit all of the big four in the UK. A couple of other companies are starting to run more deathmatchy based shows. I think even North had a deathmatch on one of their shows last year. So
yeah, well, hang on. I've sorted. Ace Matthews is the ultraviolet champion at the minute.
Yeah,
so
I
love
saw
North.
that.
You know, I love North. Obviously, you got Rory Coyle there. You got Clint McGarrett. You know, they've got established, genuine, scary bastards who can do deathmatch stuff. But we'll just say at the minute, yeah, Ace Matthews is the ultraviolet champion.
I mean, look, Rory and Clint are two men that I'm very well familiar with. Like, I tag with Rory at SovPro. I've wrestled Clint 3 times in death matches, and honestly, it boils my piss a little bit if I'm being completely honest. But you know, I'm sure Clint will sort it out in the near future.
you know, there's a storyline there, and not to be smirched, Ace. I love Ace. Ace is awesome. You know, it's just. Yeah, you know, it's kind of like again, I don't know how far back your wrestling knowledge, not knowledge, but you know, watching goes kind of thing. But it kind of makes me think of ECW in the mid-90s, like when Mick Foley refused to do anything hardcore when he was in ECW kind of thing, and you just seriously, you know, you got this really hardcore fans, and you've got a wrestler there now being like, nope, not doing hardcore, not happening. And I can imagine Ace kind of working something similar.
It's an angle that will kind of always get over with those kind of hardcore crowds if it's done well. And Ace is the perfect kind of foil to get that kind of hatred. So yeah. I think that North is North is doing something really special at the moment, and I think they walk that border of, like, you know, the kind of slightly ECW vibes, or at least Attitude Era vibes, with some of the matches very, very well, and it's clearly working because they pulling 800 people the other day.
Oh, for Thunderstruck too. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but I know it was a lot. It was just like, wow.
Yeah, it looked like a huge amount of people.
Yeah, but it's, you know, well, not just, I mean, obviously North is North. Another promotion that jumped out at me was SovPro. You know, you've worked SovPro against obviously RPD. That's the one match that jumped out at me purely because, you know, RPD is, you know, a massive fan favorite of this show kind of thing. So as soon as I see his name, I'm like, okay, cool. So, oh shit, you know, I need to go check this match out. Hopefully it's on the YouTube. But yeah, I did see. Yeah, I think that match would be amazing.
I think it is on the YouTube. Do you know what the match is? It's the world's first ever heavy nettle nightmare match.
That's it. Yep.
A fully nettles based gimmick match. There was like a gimmick table and a paddling pool filled with nettles. Not your standard RPD match, I would say.
No, definitely not.
But like, he's an incredible talent. Like, you know, because of my dad's history, like me and RPD got a lot in common. Like, we get on really well. So having that match with him, like, kind of doing something a little bit out of his comfort zone, was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one.
I thought it was a typo. I'm not going to lie. When it said like heavy metal, I was like, no. I'm just like, you know, it's heavy metal. There's going to be chairs, barbed wire, and stuff like that. You know, when I saw it.
Oh no.
I didn't actually. I was just like, that's a typo. You know, it's fine. Jeez, dude. That's just physically making me just thinking about it. I'm like, oh, mate, no.
It's not much fun. It's not much fun.
No, I can imagine, because anybody who's been stung by nettles just knows it's, you know, for the next 48 hours, you're just like, it's just the heat, the sensation. Ooh, I'll just be sitting in a cold bath for 2 days, be like, that's it, I'm out. Not moving.
That match won the SovPro what the fuck moment of the year last year. I don't think many people were surprised at that result.
That was like up there by itself. You're like, no, you know, I don't even think Les Battersby this year could have topped that as a what the fuck moment. So, but yeah, I mean, how did you find, you know, again, you know, we're reeling off these promotions, you know, like I say, Kumite, Bleeding Gums, you know, TNT, SovPro. These are big boys, you know, that are coming out to play now, kind of thing. And you're like becoming, like, you know, regular across, you know, the promotions kind of thing. You got, you know, FUTR as well, Pro Wrestling for You. You know, you're stacking up a lot of very, very good promotions on your CV.
Well, thank you very much. I've been really fortunate, because I don't think. I don't know if I'd have done this well pre-COVID. I think the attitude for hardcore wrestling has kind of changed in the country a little bit, and there's a bit more of an appetite for it. And I think people realise that I can add a little different flavour to their shows. But the truth is, like, don't come out of the House of Pain Academy without like a real grounding in the basics and the fundamentals. Like, I've done Mega Slam shows as well, and those kind of. You know, I think that's all it is. It's just grind, and you keep the more you do, the more you're on the road, the more people you meet, the bigger your phone book gets, the more you're happy and nice to be around. Then the more people keep inviting you back, and that's how it works. And luckily, like, Kumite gave me an in with a lot of people that I might not have met otherwise, and that's branched out into other areas now, and I've been really fortunate. You know, I've been doing it for 10 years, so I'll take some credit. Like, I've put in the legwork, but I have been fortunate. Sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time. Something that I told Franco when he was starting out was that it's the football thing. It's, if you're not in the box, you don't score the goal. So you just got to get around and do it, you know?
Dude, perfect analogy. I was going to bring up Franco because obviously I again spoke to him recently. He's very near Nottingham, kind of thing. I think he's just on the outskirts. And yeah, obviously, you know, we were talking Kumite, and you just mentioned Mega Slam. Obviously, you know, that's a massive part of like you said, you're getting your reps in. You know, you learn what you learn at House of Pain. You know, you have to be good to go through those doors, and for them to book you on anything like that. You know, Styx isn't going to put you forward for anything unless you are 100%. He's not going to let you sort of besmirch the school kind of thing. So you've got to be good.
Sure.
But when you go to like Mega Slam and stuff like that, and you're doing 2 or 3 shows in quick succession, that's when you start getting your reps in. That's when your muscle memory starts being like, right.
Absolutely, and it's when you start to figure out what crowds want as well, because like you will go to one crowd and there'll be a group of people on those Mega Slam shows that come every time they're in town and love it and they're really into it, and you go to another place and it's a bunch of people that don't usually watch wrestling and they're on holiday, and it's such a massive jump between the two of how the crowd work has to be, that you kind of learn like every angle of the business just from doing those kind of shows, you know. So then when I move into hardcore shows, actually a lot of those skills are transferable, like which you wouldn't have thought, but like when you're using weapons and stuff, there's a lot of pantomime, there's a lot of should I hit him with this and all that kind of rubbish, you know. So like I think those early reps, those bad shows, those 4-person crowds and stuff, they all add up over time. And do they build you into like you become greater than the sum of your parts? I think.
Yeah, no, exactly, perfectly put. Like I said, because it's just you're doing the reps. You find out what works, what doesn't work, and you find, like you said, like you just said there, you find out what works for certain audience, and you find out what works for other audiences. You know, do you have to be a little bit more pantomimey? Do you have to be a little bit more, you know, just smart marky for certain fans, kind of thing, or you know, can you slow it down?
For example, if you're working a non-deathmatch match on a deathmatch show, that's a totally different way to work a crowd, because that crowd, they don't necessarily expect death matches for every match, but what they're really there for is the ultra-violent stuff at the end of the show. So in those kind of matches, you've got to be a lot more physical. Your strikes have got to be a lot, you know, you've got to give them some meatier stuff, because they'll pick it apart if it's, you know, if you're not being, if there's not a little bit more energy and force to the style of wrestling that you're doing. You know, you've just got to, every crowd's different. You got to kind of figure out how to play each one. And sometimes you'll think you know what the crowd wants and they don't want that, and you got to kind of change or adapt in the middle. It's quite complex, but once you get a grasp of it, it's a lot of fun. It feels like, I think there's a reason that wrestlers get quite addicted to wrestling, because it's just having the control over a room to like it's a magic feeling.
You're basically the puppet master, and we're all here in the palm of your hand at some point, ready to react when you tell us to react.
But at the same time, you guys are kind of have control of the strings as well, because if I'm not performing, then that, you know, I won't get used again. So it's kind of this mutually beneficial relationship that I love.
It's a symbiotic relationship, we'll say, kind of thing. You know, we are Venom. You know, we control you, you control us.
Exactly.
We all have a part to play. But yeah, like you sort of say, you know, it's again, that's experience, that's reps. Like you sort of said, if a match isn't going the way that you thought it would because the crowd aren't reacting, for you then to be able to pick up on that and be like, right, let's flip it, let's switch it, let's do something else. Right, that's the kind of stuff that blows my mind. You know, I love all the technical moves. I love, you know, the flippy stuff. I love the chain wrestling. I also love just the impromptu, just being able to call it, you know, and be like, right, it's not working. Let's basically just flip on its head and we'll smash it.
Me too. Like, I think if you like, so one of the types of wrestling that I love the most is 90s Japanese wrestling, like the late Stan Hansen era, where he wouldn't plan a match with anybody, and you could see it. Like, he's going out there with no structure, and he's just having a match. And some of those matches are like, you get moments that you couldn't plan. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you'd planned it, you'd miss that moment that captured something, because they've worked and listened for 20 years by this point into their career. So they've got such a knack and a tune for finding what works. So I'm with you. I love that style of wrestling. I try and integrate it as much as I can especially with like the brawling stuff, because it's easier to call a brawl because you can grab somebody in close, or so you can even work a brawl with quite green people. So I try and integrate that kind of like natural, let's have a scrap kind of thing as much as I can.
And that's it, like you sort of said at the deathmatch. So if you've got to work snug kind of thing, because you can't, they like you said, they'll pull it apart. You've got, the elbows, the forearms, everything's got to be snug. Because if they see like you've missed by even an inch, they're gonna be like, no, you've just totally ruined it for us.
You mentioned ECW earlier. You take their crowds and you look at what they loved, and what they actually loved was great wrestling as much as they loved like Balls Mahoney swinging a chair. They'd bring in Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and these technical wrestlers, and Nunzio was always on those cards. Like really good grapplers and amateur skilled wrestlers, and it's that mixture. I think. Across wrestling, when it works best is when there's variety, and I think there's a room for all of this stuff across. I think that's why True Grit is a great example of a company doing well at the moment, is because across their card, every match seems quite different. You're not getting the same experience multiple times in a show.
No, definitely. I've spoken to JC about it, and he kind of does. It's one of the things that he always kind of thinks about when he's planning a show. Is he wants every match to have a different feel to it, kind of thing. So, like I sort of said, if you don't like that, you're like this. If you don't like that, you're like this. If you like everything, amazing. But I'm a realist. I know not everybody's going to like everything. But as long as you like more than you dislike,
job well done. And with my style, that's sometimes the chance you take when you put me on a show, right? Because not everybody loves hardcore wrestling, but I'll give it my all every time I'm on.
But like I said, that's not just what you bring. You can do the other stuff as well. So, you know what I mean? I think there seems to be more and more people, that kind of offer that versatility. You know what I mean? You can come in, you can work, like Pro Wrestling for You. You can work, all these other shows. Then you can go and do Kumite. You can do the family shows as well, or you can do the deathmatch shows. Like I said, I've spoken to Franco. He's a similar sort of style. You know what I mean? He can do the family shows. He was doing the Mega Slam stuff. Keg Stacker last week loves death matches,
right?
But very much a comedy kind of character and underdog kind of thing in most places. But yeah, you put him in a death match, dude's smashing it.
I think we're in a very small country, right? So the options for like wrestling bookings are slightly more limited here. Like you drive 6 hours and you hit the sea either side. So like in this country, you better be good at the other stuff if you want to get booked regularly, because there aren't as many companies running shows in little towns here and there.
That's it. I mean, I mentioned some names there. One of the top dogs for me in the deathmatch scene is B.A. Rose. And I've seen him have quality wrestling matches in True Grit. A mate saw him on a True Grit post once, and he was like, "Oh, is it a death match?" I was like, "Hey, no, I don't really do death matches in True Grit. The dude just wrestles, and the dude's awesome." But I know elsewhere, he's very. I know you've obviously been in the ring with him.
Yeah, a couple of times. I think he's fantastic. I rate him amongst one of the best that I've worked in the country personally. I think BA. There's a few guys like I think we have the advantage in this country. I think some of the American wrestlers that are deathmatch wrestlers pretty much predominantly do deathmatch shows. They'll fly to this show, do a deathmatch, fly to the next show, do a deathmatch. Because the bookings are more spread out, but there's more available to them on a short flight. Whereas here, like I said, there's not as much option. So you'll find Big Joe, doing DOA shows, doing big top promotion shows. You'll find Danny Darko does family shows all the time. Antonio Gonzalez came up in Elevation, run by Joseph Connors. Like he's got a grounding in wrestling as well. Tom B in Coventry is like does all the family shows down there. He's like a demon that's just crawled out of hell, and he's doing family shows. So I think we've all got that skill. BA is a great example because he's like you say, and a lot of the big companies doing great things at the moment. But even like you look at Emerson Jane, she can do anything at all. Very diverse. I think we've got a great pool of talent in deathmatch in this country at the moment.
And I've never actually, again, I've spoken to so many people recently that have been in there, but I never really thought about it, like why they all suddenly kind of popped up. But yeah, to rewind, I think, you hit the nail on the head. Like so I said, that makes perfect sense to me. I've not thought about it before. But what you said about COVID and all people were able to watch was that kind of style. That explains so much to me now. It's kind of like the jigsaw is kind of complete. I'm like, right, now I know why there's so many more, people doing that sort of stuff, and more promotions popping up now over the last couple of years than there was before. It's like, okay. So yeah,
let me ask you a very quick question then. Do you think that the kind of attitude towards deathmatch has changed in this country? Have you noticed? Because I know, like, Iceman will say he would have never thought there'd have been a deathmatch scene in this country because the attitude was so poor to it that people just didn't understand it. The people that you've spoken to and the fans that do you think the attitude's changing towards it?
Definitely. I think it's been elevated tenfold. I think it's gone from a handful of people trying to carry the scene, like say, Iceman, and to yeah. But I think within the last couple of years, and I don't know if it's because of guys, like you, like we've discussed, having that versatility. You're not just looking at somebody who's working a deathmatch now and be like, they're just deathmatch wrestlers. It's like, no, they're wrestlers who are working a deathmatch, as opposed to just being deathmatch wrestlers. Everybody that I can think of, is top-notch wrestlers who can do both. You've got to put them on a family show, they can work a family show, or they can work a deathmatch. And I think that means so much, and that kind of adds credit to everything.
I think that you've kind of touched on something that's important there, is that we want to do death matches. We're not doing death matches because it's our way into wrestling. Like, we were all already wrestling. I might not have had the chances that I have at the moment had it not been for deathmatch. I completely admit that. It gave me a platform that's made me more visible to more people. However, I was still booked every weekend 8 years ago. Like, I wasn't struggling and like, right, I'm gonna have to do it. I love death matches. I've loved death matches since I was a kid. Mick Foley's my favorite wrestler. Terry Funk's I think he's the all-time greatest wrestler. Like, I remember buying Power Slam magazines and seeing wrestlers covered in blood and barbed wire and thinking, what is this crazy thing that's happening somewhere else? So, like, for me, I did deathmatch because I'm passionate about it, and I thought I would have a skill set that would match it. It's the same for BA. He doesn't need to do it, but he loves it. He cares about it. He thinks that it's an art form that can be special in the right circumstances. I think that's the difference. Like, I think people used to think it's just big guys hitting each other in the head with heavy things, and I don't think that's not how we present it now.
No, and that's not. I'm not saying that's what it was back in the day, but that was the general.
It sometimes was. It sometimes was.
But I don't want to besmirch a whole group of people from like 10 years ago or something, like kind of thing. I don't want Iceman being pissed at me, or if I ever see him at a show, like popping me on the head or something. But yeah, like I say, perception is key. People now realise you guys are doing it because you're passionate about it, because you love it. You're not doing it to get into wrestling. You're doing it because you're in wrestling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it gives you a totally different way to tell a story in wrestling. It gives you options that you wouldn't have had and ways to use your imagination, and it activates crowds because they recognize that there's extra sacrifice going into it, and that, like, they give you more because they know that you're giving them more. And the atmosphere at a Kumite show or a Bleed and Gum show is entirely different to an atmosphere at any other show, because it as you can imagine, right? And I think for people that don't quite get it yet, go to a show. stand at the back of the room if you need to, if you're a little bit worried about glass flying around. But you will understand a little bit better why people are starting to click onto this now, because the atmosphere it's just a different kind of thing. It feels like a festival, but instead of bands, you've got wrestling. It's great.
Yeah, again, it's not all the same stuff. You've got a variety of, like you sort of said, the ECW comparison is one I've used so many times. So, many points for that as well. Is I always throw that out there. ECW is where like Benoit, Guerrero, Malenko, those guys made a name. And that was through technical wrestling because they were just that good. And so if you're at a hardcore or a death match, a promotion that's known for death matches, and you're not doing a death match, you've got to be good at what you do, kind of thing, to entertain the fans. You've got to work their snug. You've got to put a shift in, basically. So again, I just think it speaks volumes for everybody on the card.
I agree. I mean, Joey Slade just made his surprise debut at the last Kumite show. He's in for a whole different world.
He's only just turned 18. No.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you join Hellbound, unfortunately. Don't worry. I wouldn't. He's not going to be doing any death matches. His parents actually like me at the moment. I'd like to stay on the Christmas list.
Still get that Christmas card. Get that invite over for Boxing Day snacks or something. But, just imagine you'd be like, oh, you're 18. Oh, you can come to one of these shows now. Oh.
Yeah. He got a great reaction, though. He ran down to the ring, chased somebody off that was beating up Harley. It was Alfie, funnily enough. And there was a Joey fucking Slade chant immediately. They recognized him. So, yeah, really excited. I loved it.
Love it. That's awesome. Anytime anybody pops for Joey, pops me. That's great. So, like I said, though, Kumite, though, just the atmosphere. I've not been to a show yet, but I've watched so many reels from Jeebus, because he always goes to the Kumite shows, and just that venue, just being outside, seeing the sun, the sky, and then just the carnage. It's just unreal. I need to get to a show at some point, definitely. But I think it must be an amazing place to work.
Immediately recognizable venue, right? You see it, it's Kumite. There's nowhere else in wrestling that looks like it. In fact, Americans love Kumite. I've been told by Lou and Darko, because they sometimes travel over there, that the Americans absolutely they think Kumite is the fucking best thing ever. It's just so urban and underground looking and DIY. No, Kumite is taken on a life of its own. It kind of the shows pretty much sell out every single time now. In fact, I think they're going to allow more people in next time and sell a few more tickets, because I think there's a little bit more room. But yeah, you should definitely come down to Kumite. It made my career, and I'm really passionate about it, and I'm hopefully going to win the Death Wolf title by the end of the year. So.
Ooh, well, I've got them on in a few weeks, so I'll start planting seeds. I'll subconsciously start just Alton Thorne title,
He told me he wasn't doing podcasts anymore, so you should feel quite honoured about that, because he said he wasn't going to do them, and then clearly he's quite happy to do this one. So
He's actually dropped me a message as well, because I've been wanting to talk to him for ages, but I'm always a bit, unless I interact with people, I'm always a little bit shady about. I don't want to slide into people's DMs, and be that guy. But I think it was after the Alfie episode. Obviously, we spent a long time talking about Kumite with her. I got a message hey, if you ever want to chat, let's do it. I'm like, yes.
See, cool. There you go.
So, right.
He had go on, carry on.
No, go for it.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
I was going to mention about Hellbound. Obviously, we've mentioned, you've been the founding member. Obviously, it originally started back in the day, you and Barricade.
Yeah. He pretty much he wanted a guy that he was starting to wind down towards the end of his career. Big guy, about 6'6" from Nottingham. He couldn't take bumps as much anymore, and his knees were a little bit knackered, and he basically needed a little guy that was going to bump around for him. And I kept getting told that I was too big to take bumps. The don't bump so much. You're giving up too much size. This kind of stuff. So, and I'm not a driver. So it was kind of like a match made in heaven. I could go in the ring, and because he's the bigger guy, I could bump around a little bit. You know, he could only save one bump for the match and not get as hurt, and he'd drive me to and from the shows. So it seemed like it was a good in theory, and then in practice it worked. Like we were like a kind of almost monsterish version of the Nasty Boys. You know, like just being horrible and just awful for the sake of like this terrible heels, like bigger than everybody else on the card and still cheating just because we're pricks, basically. And what I like to do in my career is like if there's something that worked a little bit, or I can pay homage to it later or keep it around, then I try and do that. So Barricade retired during COVID. He decided that he was quite happy sitting at home and not fucking up his body anymore. And Harley Harris had already been tagging with us a little bit previous to that, and I thought, well, I could just keep the tag team going with Harley because she's getting out and about. I thought the male and the female tag team thing, you didn't see it as often, and I thought it was quite a cool looking dynamic. We're both ass kickers, so we kept the tag team going, and it's kind of grown from there and become its own little thing. And we've sold a lot of these T-shirts, more than I've ever sold doing merch before. So I think it's definitely catching on. People seem to be really connecting with it. So yeah, we've got a few more shows booked in for the whole group of us as well coming up. So going well.
Dude, love it. Like you said, the merch though, you're telling the T-shirt because the T-shirt's awesome. You know, I tend to like shout out Fast Count, but you know, credit where credit's due. You know, that is just an awesome tee, and it's ticking my boxes because I want more factions in British wrestling. You guys ticking my boxes all over the shop, kind of thing. I was like, yes, I just want you to start running roughshod everywhere. You know, I want to see Hellbound just tearing down freaking people left, right, and center.
Oh well, we're going further and further afield. I know that with yesterday there was a couple of us at Wrestle Island, and next week we're all making a Sacrifice debut together, and you know we're just going to keep pushing out as far as we can get, and hopefully we can take this all over the country and possibly even to Scotland.
Dude, do it, mate. Like I said, you know, and there's not enough of that for me. That's the one thing British wrestling is kind of lacking.
I agree, and it's nice. It's nice. More people should do it. You got 4 of your mates with you. Like, it's good on the road. You've always got people that have got your back. Like, I'd recommend it to anybody. Like, hopefully, like VGS have got a kind of similar dynamic to us with the Quidlands and Casey Payne, those guys. Hopefully, we'll cross paths with them soon.
Oh,
that'd be nice.
Oh, yeah. Imagine you and Joey going against the Quinlands or something. That'd be cool.
And David Grant and Casey Payne are both big sluggers. That'd be a good match as well.
Yeah, I kind of saw, obviously, one of the Quinlands and Joey at Wrestle Island yesterday in that 6-man crazy sort of just bodies flying everywhere match.
Yeah, I saw the Quinlands against Act 2 a few years ago and knew immediately that they were going to both be huge. And Joey, obviously, like I've known him since he was a tiny kid, sitting on the front row watching me wrestle. I think the future, I think that 6-man proved it yesterday. The future's looking pretty bright for British wrestling at the moment. Like we've got a good pool of talent in and around, and we've got a really good group of talent coming through as well. On a hot streak.
Brandon Brooks as well was another one in that match that I saw recently at Tidal last weekend, kind of thing. And yeah, all the time in the world. I saw him at Tidal, and I kind of did what I said I would never do. I just basically messaged the guy and be like, "Do you want to be on the show?" kind of thing. So
yeah, shout out to Brandon. Similar story to Joey. He's been doing it since he was a little kid, you know, like he's been in and around the business for longer than people a lot older than him have been a lot of the time. Like he's kind of the veteran low-key. And now he's starting to put a little bit of size on and starting to get out a little bit further. And places like Tidal are giving him an opportunity to wrestle guys like Kingsley, who, you know, is always gonna you'll have anybody can have a good match with Kingsley. Spoiler, it hasn't been announced yet, but I know that at the end of the month, I think Brandon's going to cash in his key and have a match with me at Future. So there's a main event coming up between me and Brandon in the next couple of months, I think.
Ooh, awesome! That's me. Yeah, I'm getting. So I'm making little silly noises when I get excited. I was just like, ooh, yeah, I'll be interested in that one. But I'm going to use that as a segue. You know, we've just been hyping people up, you know, talking how awesome like Joey is and, you know, Brandon. And we're going to go, I'm going to flip the coin and go from awesomeness to Sash.
Oh, God, yeah, go on, let's do it.
It's got to come up, you know, if not just to feed his ego a little bit more, because, you know, just like, oh, you guys do it, never talk about me. But obviously, I see you guys going backwards and forth on Twitter, so it's got to be mentioned, you know.
Yeah,
you know, I want to point out, you know, you made him quit.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I thought I'd done away with him. Like, I don't think he's quit the company, but he quit the match, and I thought he might slide under his rock and hide away for a little bit. You know, little weird dude with Andrew Tate podcast on his iPod and votes conservative, probably, you know, that kind of fella. To be fair, whatever bad things I've got to say about Sash, and there are a hell of a lot of them, like, he's a hell of a talent. He gave me 8 months of hell at Future. like cutting horrible promos, scathing promos. He's witty and he can go. He could go in the ring. He's no joke, right? So for all the like bullshit and bravado and all that bollocks, he's legitimate. He's a tough wrestler. Having said that, if you could stop being such a massive fucking knob, that'd be really, really nice.
Just a melt. That's the thing as well. Yeah, you know, don't be under any illusion. You know, I'm kind of sort of, you know, so for this, Sash is legit. You know, he can. That's the annoying thing, though. The dude can go in the ring. He's a freaking, you know, tough son of a bitch kind of thing. He's just like, dude, yeah. So
one of those people that can't help but say the most offensive thing you can think of every chance he gets. It's just shut up, mate. You just sit down and shut up. Like, we don't need the squawking every 5. Never mind. You get me on Sash and I'll start ranting.
Go for it, dude. Unless I have to say I'm happy, mate. You can literally go on for the next 15, 20 minutes if you want. But no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to feed his ego. You know, that's it. It's done. It's dead. We've said it. We've given a little 2-minute. You know, he can clip it. He can edit it. He can put it on Twitter if he wants. You know, it's. So yeah, you know, obviously going forward, you know, we've talked Kumite, Bleeding Gums, Pro Wrestling for You, SovPro, you know, so many other promotions as well that I've not mentioned. Elevation, you know, House of Pain, obviously. What's obviously not what's on the list, you know, I'm not wanting you to sort of like, I'm not putting you on the spot and being like, you know, where do you want to work? Who do you want to work with kind of thing. But what's in your eyesight, you know, for the rest of the year? What have you got kind of lined up or what you're wanting to kind of do?
So it's funny, like when I kind of think about my goals, like they were all, I think I've ticked them all off because they were always quite simple goals. It was like I wanted to get to intermediate classes, then I wanted to get to advanced classes, then I wanted to get on a show, and I wanted to main event a show, I wanted to be on a poster. It was all those kind of things. And then it got up to where I'm at now, which is I wanted to get paid 3 figures for a match. I wanted to do a death match. I think the only thing that I've got left on my list really is a trip to America to wrestle. I've got ADHD, so I find traveling quite hard. Like I'm not a massive fan of being in planes and cars because I need to pace and do things. So it's never been my ambition to be a full-time traveling wrestler at all. But in terms of just having done the things, that matter to me, I always loved American indie wrestling. I would love to do a match on the indie wrestling scene for like a GCW or an ICW or one of those companies.
What about Rise when they go to America? That still counts. You wrestle in America.
Rise is an option, but the Rise, I think, because the pool of deathmatch wrestlers is getting bigger now, what you're finding is that they're kind of factioning off. So you have certain wrestlers that are always on Kumite shows, certain wrestlers that are always on Rise shows, certain wrestlers that are always on Bleeding Gums shows, and they cross over sometimes, but they kind of have their main ones, and then there's Joe and Lou, who kind of dart between all of them because they're big names, right? So, like with the Rise going to America stuff, obviously they're going to prioritize the guys that were doing this before I was doing it. Like, you're definitely going to send over the Outlaws. You're definitely going to send over BA. Those people are going to get top priority, and I don't have any issues with that at all. However, I know that both Kumite and Bleeding Gums have had talks in past with other companies in America, so it's not out of the realms of possibility that there'll be a pathway for me in one of those other companies that I work for.
I was going to say, Cliff, as you mentioned, before, the Americans are kind of digging the Kumite vibe kind of thing. So, I would say, touch wood, within 12, 24 months, something's getting sorted out, something's being done. You need to stock up on some of that Mr. T milk, so you can just sleep on the plane.
or just whiskey, that'll do.
There you go. That's it. I would never sort of say drink too much, so I'll save the milk. But if you want to make it an Irish milk, that's I don't know if that'd work. That might curdle. That might be disgusting. I don't know. Don't do that. But yeah, I think 12, 24 months max. Something's getting sorted out, and I could imagine, because I've seen the success Rise have had to go backwards and forwards, and other people are going to want to get involved in that. And not everybody's going to be able to book Rise, so they're going to be looking at other UK promotions. And Kumite is, an obvious choice. So it's like, I think the dude struck gold with the name, because before I even saw what Kumite did, as soon as I hear that name, I'm a massive 80s action film nerd. Yeah. I hear Kumite, mate. I've just seen, Frank Dukes. I'm thinking Bloodsport.
Same. Not everybody gets it. It's a slightly niche reference, which is perfect for a deathmatch show, isn't it? Like, it's very niche. But the people that get it immediately, their thoughts go to like Bloodsport and straight away. But a lot of people are like, "What's Kumite?" You're like, no, not that, mate, not that.
Kumite. It's a bit like Marmite. It's not for everyone, but
not for everyone.
I'm even like, I've got like a little, I don't know if I might get knocked off of YouTube for it, but I've kind of got the Kumite song from Bloodsport, the Kumite. Yeah, I'm going to use that as my intro music for the Kumite episode.
Yeah, so, you should. I use that for a lot of my stories on Instagram as well. That gets a lot of use.
I love it. Somebody else who gets it and does the same sort of thing. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yes. But yeah, no, I think
actually the next big thing is like one of the things that I would have always wanted to tick off was no rope barbed wire match, which I am doing this weekend in Scotland. It will be the first ever no rope barbed wire death match in Scottish history. So this Saturday for Bleeding Gums Wrestling, I'm making history in Scotland.
Dude, wow. Okay, so who's it against and why?
It's against Jack Harrop, Iceman's son. Now, if you'd have told me a decade and a half ago that I'd be feuding with Iceman's son, I would not believe. Like, he's kind of my hero, one of my heroes from this country, Iceman. So it's like a full kind of 360 moment for me. Me and Jack Harrop have been feuding in Scotland because I was told that everybody bigged me up as like the next big thing in deathmatch, and then he debuted, and obviously his dad's trained him, and he's very, very good straight away. So the idea is that it's kind of driving me a little bit crazy that he's kind of got all this inbuilt skill, and I was supposed to be the next big thing, and he's jumping the queue. So we've built up a nasty feud based on that, and hence the no ropes and the barbed wire. God.
Hey, oh, dude, that is going to be unreal. I'm hyped for you as well, though, because like you said, it's a benchmark. You're
Yep.
making history. It's the first time it's been done in Scotland. Dude, that is your name in the books.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's there.
Feels special. It's one of those match types that you'll have always seen the pictures of, and it's one of the things that would have drawn you if you're a hardcore wrestling fan. Those pictures of the no ropes and the ring wrapped in barbed wire will always stick with you. So it's one of those things that I feel like I've got to do. If I'm a deathmatch wrestler, I've got to do it at some point, and that point is about 6 days away now.
This weekend.
I realize what an idiot I am.
Dude, well, in the words, I'll drop another name. I'm going to say in the words of Mr. Radu Bulat, a couple of cans of Red Stripe, some aspirin, jobs are good.
Yeah. It's good advice.
I've seen a barbed wire rope or no rope barbed wire match years ago in 1PW. It was I know Steve Carino was in it. I want to say against Abyss. I want to say it was Steve Carino against Abyss. Yeah, in a no rope barbed wire match.
Yeah, I think I remember that match.
Yeah, craziness.
I saw one at a Southside show. With unfortunately one of the gentlemen we can't name anymore, but like Southside ran one of those matches. I saw it live. It was another one of those moments where it's like I've got to do this eventually. So
add it to the list. So, mate, that's amazing. I don't think actually, you know what, I want to sort of wrap it up based on you just making history. I think that is, the last thing we talk about. That is quite an accomplishment, and
I'm cool with that.
And we've gone over the hour mark anyway, so I'm like, oh crap, right, okay, that's blown by, dude. Right, well, let people know where they can find you on socials, so they know what you're doing. They can see footage of this moment in history after the weekend.
The best places to see it will be at Alton Thorne on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it, and at Alton Thorne Wrestling on Instagram. I share all of the matches and everything I've got coming up on there, so you will get to see some footage of the stuff that I've talked about over the next few days for definite.
Dude, I'm so hyped. It's unreal. Obviously, we'll tag you and stuff as well. So, if you're not following Alton, please, when we put a post up and you see his name, click on it, hit follow, see what he's up to, see what he's been up to. If he's on a show near you, go to it, enjoy it, watch it, and buy a Hellbound t-shirt.
Yes, do that. Definitely do that.
Join the movement, if we start popping up in random places of the country, they may turn up in random places of the country for shows. If promoters see Hellbound, t-shirts in the audience, they'll be like, yes, we'll get them.
And you will see them because they're bright green, so do get them.
I'm going to start wearing them Tidal and True Grit for you, dude. I'll get one ordered and I'll start repping it around Yorkshire. So, right, as always, you know where to find us. Hopefully, WTLS 316 on Insta, which is run by my boy Ash. So, all Instagram posts and messages and communications are via Ash, not me. And on Twitter or X, it is WTLS 420. Shout out to Mr. RVD. And thank you for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, share, do all the normal boring stuff I asked you to do. And we will see you again very soon. Goodbye.